I hadn't heard from my stepdaughter, Hyacinth, in what felt like forever, so when she invited me to dinner, I thought maybe this was it, the moment we'd finally patch things up. But nothing could have prepared me for the surprise she had waiting for me at that restaurant. Get a cup of coffee and settle down, because this story is inspiring from start to finish. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. I'm Rufus, 50 years old, and I've learned to live with a lot over the years. My life's been pretty steady, maybe too steady. I work a quiet office job, live in a modest house, and spend most of my evenings with a book or the news on TV. Nothing too exciting, but I've always been okay with that. The one thing I never quite figured out is my relationship with my stepdaughter, Hyacinth. It had been a quiet year, or maybe longer, since I'd heard anything from her. We never really clicked, not since I married her mother, Lilith, when she was still a teenager. She always kept her distance, and I guess over time, I stopped trying as hard to. But I was surprised when she called me out of the blue, sounding oddly cheerful. "Hey Rufus," she said, her voice almost too upbeat. "How about we grab dinner? There's this new restaurant I want to try." At first, I didn't know what to say. Hyacinth hadn't reached out in ages. Was this her way of mending fences? Trying to build some kind of bridge between us? If she was, I was all for it. For years, I'd wanted that. I wanted to feel like we were some version of family. "Sure," I replied, hoping for a fresh start. "Just tell me where and when." The restaurant was fancy, much fancier than I was used to. Dark wood tables, soft lighting, and waiters in crisp white shirts. Hyacinth was already there when I arrived, looking different. She smiled at me, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hey Rufus! You made it!" She greeted me, and there was this weird energy about her. It was as if she was trying too hard to seem relaxed. I sat down across from her, trying to read the room. "So, how've you been?" I asked, hoping for some real conversation. Good, she said quickly, scanning the menu. "You? Everything good with you?" Her tone was polite but distant. Same old, I replied, but she wasn't really listening. Before I could ask anything else, she waved over the waiter. "We'll have the lobster," she said with a quick smile my way. "And maybe the steak too. What do you think?" I blinked, a little caught off guard. I hadn't even looked at the menu, but she was already ordering the priciest items. I shrugged it off. "Yeah, sure, whatever you like." But the whole situation felt strange. She seemed nervous, shifting in her seat, glancing at her phone every now and then, and giving me these clipped responses. As the meal went on, I tried to steer the conversation towards something deeper, something meaningful. "It's been a while, hasn't it? I've missed catching up with you." "Yeah," she muttered, barely glancing up from her lobster. "Been busy, you know? Busy enough to disappear for a year?" I asked, half joking, but the sadness in my voice was harder to hide. She looked at me for a second, then back at her plate. "You know how it is. Work, life." Her eyes kept darting around like she was waiting for someone or something. I kept trying, asking her about her job, friends, anything to keep the conversation going, but she wasn't giving me much. Short answers, no eye contact. The more we sat there, the more I felt like I was intruding on something I wasn't supposed to be a part of. Then the bill came. I reached for it automatically, pulling out my card, ready to pay as planned. But just as I was about to hand it over, Hyacinth leaned in close to the waiter and whispered something. I couldn't catch it. Before I could ask, she shot me a quick smile and stood up. "I'll be right back," she said. "Just need to use the washroom." I watched her walk away, my stomach sinking. Something wasn't right. The waiter handed me the bill, and my heart skipped when I saw the total. It was outrageous, far more than I'd expected. I glanced toward the washroom, half expecting Hyacinth to return, but she didn't. Minutes ticked by. The waiter hovered, looking at me expectantly. With a sigh, I handed him my card, swallowing the disappointment. What had just happened? Did she really just bail? I paid, feeling a knot form in my chest. As I walked toward the exit, a wave of frustration and sadness washed over me. All I wanted was a chance to reconnect, to talk like we never had before. And now, it felt like I'd just been used for a free dinner. But just as I reached the door, ready to leave, I heard a sound behind me. I turned around slowly, not sure what I was about to face. My stomach was still twisted in knots, but when I saw Hyacinth standing there, my breath caught in my throat. She was holding this enormous cake, grinning like a kid who'd pulled off the ultimate prank, and in her other hand was a bunch of balloons bobbing gently above her head. I blinked, trying to make sense of what was happening. Before I could say anything, she beamed at me and blurted out, "You're gonna be a granddad!" For a second, I just stood there, stunned, my mind racing to catch up with her words. "A granddad?" I repeated, feeling like I'd missed something huge. My voice cracked a little. It was the last thing I expected to hear, and I didn't know if I'd heard her right. She laughed, her eyes sparkling with that same nervous energy she'd had during dinner. Only now, it all made sense. "Yes. I wanted to surprise you," she said, taking a step closer and holding up the cake like a trophy. It was white with blue and pink icing, and in big letters across the top it read, "Congrats, Grandpa." I blinked again, still trying to wrap my head around it. "Wait, you planned this?" She nodded, the balloons swaying as she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. "I was working with the waiter the whole time. I wanted it to be special. That's why I kept disappearing. I wasn't ditching you, I swear. I wanted to give you the surprise of a lifetime." I could feel my chest tightening, but it wasn't from disappointment or anger. It was something else, something warmed out. I looked down at the cake, at Hyacinth's face, and everything started to fall into place. "You did all this for me?" I asked quietly, still feeling a bit like I was in a dream. "Of course, Rufus," she said, her voice softening. "I know we've had our differences, but I wanted you to be part of this. You're going to be a granddad." She paused, biting her lip, like she wasn't sure what my reaction would be. "I guess I wanted to tell you in a way that would show you how much I care." Something in her words hit me hard. Hyacinth had never been the one to open up, and here she was, trying to bridge the gap we'd had for so long. My throat tightened as I tried to find the right words. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she said, her eyes locking with mine. "I just wanted you to know that I want you in our lives. My life. And the baby's life." Hyacinth let out a shaky breath, and I could tell this wasn't easy for her. "I know we've had a tough time, Rufus. I wasn't the easiest kid. But I've grown up. And I want you to be part of this family." For a second, I just stared at her, my heart swelling with emotions I hadn't let myself feel for years. The distance, the tension between us, it all seemed to fade in that moment. I didn't care about the awkward dinner or the silence from before. All I cared about was that she was standing here, in front of me, giving me this incredible gift. "Hyacinth, I don't know what to say. I never expected this. I didn't expect to be pregnant either," she said, laughing, and for the first time in years, it wasn't forced. It was real. But here we are. I couldn't help it. Something inside me broke free, and I stepped forward, pulling her into a hug. She stiffened for a moment, probably just as surprised as I was, but then she melted into it. We stood there, holding each other, balloons bouncing above us, cake squished between us, and for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I had my daughter back. "I'm so happy for you," I whispered into her hair, my voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much this means to me." She pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes, though she was still grinning. "It means a lot to me too. I'm sorry I've been distant. I didn't know how to come back after everything. But I'm here now." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak just yet. My chest felt like it was about to burst, and all I could do was squeeze her hand, hoping she understood just how much this moment meant. She smiled, glancing down at the cake between us. "We should probably get out of here before they kick us out," she joked, her voice lighter now. "This is probably the weirdest granddad announcement they've ever had." I chuckled, wiping at the corners of my eyes with the back of my hand. "Yeah, probably." We grabbed the cake and balloons, and as we walked out of the restaurant, something inside me had shifted. It was like all those years of distance, of feeling like I didn't belong in her life, were gone. I wasn't just Rufus anymore. I was going to be her baby's granddad. As we stepped into the cool night air, I looked over at Hyacinth, feeling lighter than I had in years. "So, when's the big day?" I asked, finally letting the excitement settle in. She grinned, holding the balloons tight in her hand. 6 months. You've got plenty of time to prepare, Grandpa." And just like that, the wall between us crumbled. We weren't perfect, but we were something better. We were family. Loved how this story turned out. Here's another one you'll enjoy even more. For 3 years, Audrey's parents claimed they couldn't afford birthday gifts for her, while her younger sister received $50 every year. On the day after her 17th birthday, Audrey walked into a family gathering with a cake, only to discover a shocking secret that changed everything.